Parshas Pinchas. The story of Pinchas is, we had at the end of last week's Parsha, Bilam gave advice to the Moabites and the Midianites that if you want to inflict severe damage to the Jewish people, although he wasn't able to curse them, that God does not like licentiousness. So if we can find a way to seduce the men into doing those kinds of sins, then God will punish them himself. And so that's what happened. The women were able to seduce many Jews. A quarter of the Jewish male population fell into this sin. 24,000 of them died in a plague. And the plague got worse and worse. Then one of the tribal leaders by the name of Zimri comes along, and he himself wants to engage in forbidden relations with a princess from Midian, and he brazenly does that as well in public. And then we see in source number 1, which is the end of last week's Parsha, it says, Pinchas, the son of Elazar, the son of Aaron, the Kohen, saw, and he stood up amid the assembly and took a spear in his hand. So, and he killed them. Pinchas killed the prince and the foreign princess while in the midst of their act of cohabiting. He speared them right through and killed them. That's what Torah tells us. And the plague stopped after that. Okay, that's the simple background. We'll get more into this as the story goes on. So now we begin the first 4 psukim of this week's Parsha. And we find a number of questions. Second source. Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, Pinchas, the son of Elazar, son of Aaron the Kohen, turned back my wrath from upon the children of Israel when he zealously avenged my vengeance among them, so I did not consume the children of Israel in my vengeance. So the Torah is calling Pinchas in Hebrew a kanoi, a zealot. A zealot. He zealously avenged my vengeance. Okay. And therefore say the following message from the Almighty. Behold, I give him my covenant of peace. I give him a bris shalom. And it shall be for him and his offspring after him a covenant of eternal priesthood, because he took vengeance for his God and he atoned for the children of Israel. Okay. So the most important question I want to deal with today is, how, on the one hand, if I would tell you 2 words, would you say that they go hand in hand or they seem to conflict? One word is a zealot, a kanoi, and the other thing is a bris shalom, a covenant of peace. A covenant of peace, like a zealot, usually someone with uncompromising standards. That's what a zealot is. Uncompromising standards. It's my way and this is the way. Shalom, peace, usually requires compromise. Right? So if, for example, if that year they were handing out Nobel Peace Prizes, and they start looking at the candidates, and they say, well, I would nominate Pinchas. Why? Well, because he brutally murdered a prince and a princess to show his righteous indignation for God. I don't know if most people would suggest that he would be the winner of the Nobel Prize that year. But yet the Torah says God gives him a covenant of peace. God is giving him the Nobel Peace Prize. This is the ultimate peace prize, a bris shalom, a covenant of peace. So this is what we have to discuss today. How do we resolve a person being a zealot on the one hand, having uncompromising standards, and on the other hand, having a covenant of peace? That's what we have to discuss. How can we resolve these 2 issues? That's question number 1. Now, on a purely technical level, I didn't put this source down, but on a purely technical level, the Gemara in Brachos tells us if a Kohen kills someone, even by accident, he's not allowed to perform the blessings of the Kohen. And the Rambam rules that way. And Rambam says even if he does teshuvah, it won't help. All this is why? Because the end of the blessing, it says, V'yasem l'cha shalom, and God should bring peace among you. Well, obviously, the halacha feels he's on the opposite of shalom. When you kill someone, that's not shalom. And here, that's even unintentionally. And here it's intentionally he killed them. So how does he get a bris or shalom for kahuna? Okay, that's sort of a same question, but from a halachic point of view. Okay, well, let's take a look at the Rashi in source number 3. And Rashi tells us, what's this idea of this priesthood? What about the priesthood? I'm going to give him, the pasuk says, and shall be for him and his offspring after him a covenant of eternal priesthood. Why is he getting in the covenant of priesthood? Isn't he already a Kohen? He's the son of Aaron, the son of Elazar, the Kohen. So isn't he a Kohen already? What's his eternal priesthood? So Rashi says something amazing. For although the priesthood had already been given to Aaron's descendants, it was only given to Aaron and his sons, who had been anointed together with him, and to their offspring, who they may beget after they had been anointed. The world was like this. Hashem anointed Aaron, he anointed Elazar, he anointed his son. Now, Elazar and his son, any children that they had at that point, they were not made Kohanim. For whatever reasons, we'll see. Any children they have after they're made Kohanim, then their children will be Kohanim. You got it? Aaron was a Kohen. His sons, Elazar and his son, were made Kohanim. Elazar and his son, if they had any children at that point, they were not made Kohanim. Elazar and son, if they have any future children after they've been a Kohen, those children will be Kohanim. So in other words, there were 3 original Kohanim, and only future born children will be Kohanim. Now, the problem is, Pinchas was already alive at this time. Pinchas is the son of Elazar, the son of Aaron. So when Hashem made Aaron a Kohen, and Elazar a Kohen, and his son a Kohen, Pinchas, who was alive at this time, God said that he's not going to be a Kohen. Now, if Elazar and his son have future children, they will be Kohanim. That's the facts. You may have questions on it, but that's the facts. So now, but Pinchas, who had been born previous to that and had not been anointed, had not yet attained the status of priesthood until now. He was not a Kohen. So too do we read in the Talmud Zevachim. Pinchas did not become a priest until he had slain Zimri, in the case over here. So that's what Rashi is telling us. Hashem is giving him the gift of being a Kohen now. That's what the pasuk is saying. I give him to him and his descendants, not only the covenant of priest, but a covenant of eternal, covenant of peace, but the covenant of eternal priesthood. So the simple question is, why didn't he become a Kohen right away? That's the obvious question. So what's going on over here? Why did he have to earn his stripes while the others did not have to earn their stripes? That's the basic question. Very important question. Well, now we go to the Midrash. Go to the Midrash. Midrash fills in some of the details. This was a terrible, terrible scene over here. Again, another bad parsha. At least last week's parsha was a bad parsha, because that was how it ended. So all these men start getting this wave of Age of Aquarius love to these women. And the tribal head comes along, Zimri. He took one of the Midianite princesses. Look what he did, the chutzpah. He seized her by her plait of hair and brought her to Moshe. He said to him, "O son of Aaron, is this woman permitted in marriage or forbidden?" He answered him, "She is forbidden to you." Said Zimri to him, "Yet the woman who you married was a Midianitess." Thereupon Moshe felt powerless and the law slipped from his mind. Very, very interesting medrash. So first of all, the question is, what does it mean Moshe felt powerless, felt weakened? Right? His hands became weak. And what's this concept of forgetting the law? Like, what's going on over here? And obviously, didn't Moshe have a good answer to that question? Why was Moshe allowed to marry a non-Jewish woman? So there are answers. First of all, he married her before the Torah was given. It wasn't prohibited at this point in time. When he married us before we got the, many years before we got the Torah. Number one. Number two, the rabbis say she converted before they got married. So what's the problem? His case was totally different. This was before the Torah was given. Before it was given, we didn't have to keep the Torah. And number two, she converted anyway. So Moshe had simple answers to give. Why didn't he give answers? And it says he was weakened. What does it mean he's weakened? He forgot the law. What's going on over here? Now, there's also a Gemara in Sanhedrin. Very interesting halacha. Now, we don't practice this halacha today, because you have to have a Jewish court and all that stuff, which we don't have. But he says like this. If you see a person acting intimately with a non-Jew, if a Jew is living with a non-Jew intimately, the law is kanoin pogimbo. A zealous person may kill him. Okay? Now, we don't do this nowadays. But when we had a Beis HaMikdash, and the presence of God was very well perceived by people, the Rambam says when a person has relations, when a Jew has relations with a non-Jew, the sin is as bad as if he is worshipping an idol. And if you saw a Jew worshiping an idol, you'd kill him too. So you see this guy is sleeping with a non-Jewish woman. Again, this woman we had a temple. Even though we don't kill them now, it doesn't mitigate the terrible sin that's happening. But nowadays, people, they don't know that there's a God. Even Jews don't know there's a God. Even I am Jews. What does it mean to be Jewish? What does it matter to intermarry? But in those days, it was a serious thing. It was a serious thing. The halacha is, if you see a Jewish man living with a non-Jewish woman like that, brazenly and openly, if you're a zealot, you may kill them. But look at the next clause. However, we do not instruct him to do so. If he'll go to the rabbis will say, yeah, you could kill him, but we're not going to let you. So that's a very strange halacha. If you kill him, so why do we tell him not to? And we're talking about we're not talking about we're living amongst non-Jews. We have to worry about the non-Jewish courts. We're talking in the land of Israel. King Solomon is on his throne, and we have lots of power and autonomy. And if a Jew would want to intermarry, the law is a zealot can kill him. But if he goes to the court and says, "Can I kill him?" they're going to say, "Even though that's the law, but we're telling you not to." So why? If that's the law, then do it. Let's continue. The Medrash continues. Well, Pinchas, now, get back to the story, where all these people are involved with these non-Jewish women, even the tribal head is. Pinchas saw what's happening, and he remembered the law. The zealots may kill these people. And said to Moshe Rabbeinu, respectfully, "O great uncle, did you not teach us that he who cohabits with a non-Jew is punished by zealots? Aren't they supposed to get killed?" He replied, "He who reads the letter, let him be the agent." Which means, since you're the one who brought it up, okay, so you go ahead and go kill them. You go ahead and kill them. So it seems that Moshe is not following the law as it says in Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin says if people ask, we say no, even though that's the law, but we say no. Moshe didn't say no. Right? Which is most interesting. Now, there's even a better question. Why didn't Moshe kill them? Moshe is not a weakling. When he came down from the mountain, when he saw the Jews with the golden calf, he broke the tablets by himself. He's a strong man. Last week's parsha, he killed 2 giants in battle. Moshe's strong. He's the leader. Remember when he saw the Egyptian beating up on a Jew? He doesn't even have to do anything. He just says the ineffable name of God. Wham! Guy's dead. Moshe needs any help? No, Moshe knows the law. Even if he forgot the law. Pinchas reminded him of the law. Okay, thank you for reminding me about the law. I don't need you. One second. Alakazam, Alakazu. Here's Hashem's name, and that's the end of you. Boom. Why did Moshe kill them? Why Pinchas? And wait a minute. What did Moshe do when he saw the sin of the golden calf? I mean, this is a sin of almost similar proportions. What happens? He sees the golden calf. He breaks the luchos, and then he says the clarion call. Mi Lashem Elai. He who is with Hashem, come with me, and we will kill the people who should be killed. And who came? The tribe of Levi joined him. And enforced the law, and killed thousands of people who were supposed to be killed, who were worshipping the golden calf. Why is Moshe doing this now? What happened to the tribe of Levi? What's going on? The Levites, the army. What happened to them? A very, very unusual story, to say the least. Well, let's take it a little further. Pinchas comes along, and he kills the prince and the princess. Okay. Now, let's look at the next Rashi. Number 6. Hashem, question, why is Hashem giving this whole story? Pinchas, the son of Elazar, the son of Aaron, turned back my wrath from upon the children of Israel. He zealously avenged my vengeance among them, blah, 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 blah. Why all this talk? So Rashi says, because the tribes spoke disparagingly of him. The tribes were very upset with Pinchas, saying, have you seen this grandson of Puti, the father whose mother used to fatten calves for idolatrous practices? What does that mean? Well, who is his father? Elazar. Who was Elazar's wife? Was also a daughter of Yisro. Moshe married a daughter of Yisro. Elazar married a daughter of Yisro. Saying, oh, look who his grandfather is. His grandfather was Yisro, who was an idol worshiper. Grandson of an idol worshiper does things that aren't good. They were disparaging him. Comes along Hashem and says, no. And he dared to slay a prince of one of Israel's tribes? There connects his genealogy with Aaron. And say, no, don't forget he's the grandson of Aaron who loved peace, who ran after peace. So don't speak negatively about it. But this is incredible. How could the people speak bad about the guy? He did what the law is. Those who are zealous, kill him. He asked Moshe. Moshe said, kill him. So how could they be upset? And it goes even further. I didn't have place, but the Mal quote to the Midrash says that, you know what? It says God had to do 12 miracles for Pinchas, for him to be able to perform the act of vengeance that he performed. 12 miracles. I'll list a few of them. The first miracle was that though in the ordinary course they would have separated from each other after he jabs them, Hashem made a miracle that they were still cleaving to each other after he ran them through. The second miracle is the angel shut their mouths so they didn't cry out. You know, he just can't go into their tent and kill them without them screaming. They could have screamed and people would have helped them. Third was that he directed the spear straight towards her belly so that his genitals might have been seen inside the belly. This was done so that the cavaliers might not say that he had also gone in to satisfy his desire. Whereas some people might have thought that Pinchas wanted to have relations with her too. So he enabled the spear to go through in a way that made it clear that it was the two of them and not him that was involved in this. The fourth was that the angel lengthened the iron so that it might pierce them both. It wasn't really thick enough to kill both of them, and an angel made it longer. It goes on and on and on. He had the strength to do it, etc., etc. And the last was when Pinchas came out, the members of that man's tribe stood ready to attack him. But an angel descended and commenced to strike them. They wanted to kill Pinchas. Why? He was doing what he was supposed to do. At least they're insulting him. Why insulting him? He's doing what is supposed to be done. Lots and lots of questions on this parsha. Let's review them quickly. Number one, how do we give him the Nobel Peace Prize for killing people? Since when is a zealot balanced with a person who is a Nobel Prize winner? Number two, why was Pinchas excluded from being a Kohen originally? He only gets to be a Kohen after he kills these people. The next question is, what does it mean that Moshe was weakened? Why didn't Moshe take the law in his own hands? What does it mean he forgot the halacha? Why does the Bezdin instruct us not to fulfill this law? Why was the response here different by the sin of the golden calf, where Moshe was able to get people to help him out in the tribe of Levi? And why were people so upset with Pinchas? Lots of mysteries. So to understand this, let's go back to the original Gemara. The Gemara says if somebody is cohabiting with a non-Jew, those who are zealots may kill him. Question is, we have to come up with a definition of what is a kanoi. What is a zealot? The Torah definition of a zealot. What is the Torah definition of a zealot for the name of Hashem? So I'm going to read for you a little bit from one of the Hasidic Sforim called the Arvei Nachal. And the Arvei Nachal talks about this idea of different levels of doing things for the sake of heaven. It's interesting, the Chovos HaLevavos, one of the very early works, talks about the idea of doing your avodas Hashem, serving Hashem, with not ulterior motives. And he says, how do you know when you do a mitzvah that you're doing it without any ulterior motives? How do you know when you're doing a mitzvah it's truly l'shem shamayim, for the sake of the mitzvah and not for anything else? How do you know? So number one, he says, check out what reward you're expecting to get, and from who are you expecting it from. If you expect it from God, then you're okay. If you expect it from anyone besides Hashem, then that's not right. Well, I'm doing a mitzvah because I want everybody to think I'm a great guy, and I'm going to get a good shidduch now. I'm doing this mitzvah for other reasons. No, you shouldn't do it for a reason, because Hashem wants you to do it, and Hashem is the one who will reward you. But the second one is even more interesting. Second, let's say you're in Shul and you're davening, and you're shuckling, and you come on and go, you have a long Shemona Esrei, 25-minute Shemona Esrei. Woo, wow! Must be for the sake of heaven, right? So the second one is really the unbelievable litmus test. He says, examine yourself as to whether you would have performed the religious act in the way you did if you had been alone. When nobody's watching, would you do it the same way? That's the real acid test. A lot of times we look very religious because there's people watching. We want to make it look good, right? But if you do you do the same way when you're alone at home? Oh, then we know that it's proper and that it's good. Okay, so and that's what he says. That's the real way to tell. So this in mind, the Arvei Nachal brings 3 levels of people in this area. And let's look at all 3 of these levels. He's going to do the middle way, which is for the average person, the low way, which isn't good at all, and the highest level. 3 levels. And this really brings into the whole issue. When you do mitzvahs, is it better to do mitzvahs publicly or privately? Whatever. Let's say you're giving tzedakah. Let's say you're helping somebody. Is it better publicly or privately? So let's see. I'll paraphrase a few lines from the Arvei Nachal. He says, the middle way is to try to conceal your activities from people as much as possible. Why? Because then you free yourself with the battle with your Yetzer Hara, which all of a sudden, if you do it publicly, the Yetzer is going to say, see, everybody thinks you're a good guy. When you do it publicly, there's too much temptation to be doing it because there's approval ratings go up. Therefore, avoid the whole temptation. Do it privately. No one's going to know what's going on, right? Because if you do it for people's approval ratings, that's very bad. So, unless you have to do it, let's say you have to go to Minyan, you have no choice. You can't go to Minyan privately. If you have to do the mitzvah in public, okay, you have to. You don't have a choice. But wherever you can do a mitzvah privately, do it privately. Okay, and we do it publicly, you're going to have to fight with your Yetzer Hara. That's right. And even if you are doing it publicly, where you have to do it publicly, you should bring it to your heart, as if, even though the room is full, to you it's like it's empty, and only God's in the room. And that's the middle level. The middle level basically is saying is, conceal as much as is humanly possible. Why? To avoid the struggle with the Yetzer Hara. If you must do a mitzvah publicly, you have to go to Minyan. You have to hear the Megillah. These are things you have to do publicly. Do it, but pretend when you're doing it that there's nobody else in the room, just you and Hashem. That's the middle level. The lower level, which is not a good level at all, is that even when you're doing the mitzvah privately, you leave enough footprints behind so that people will discover your tremendous religiosity, that you're doing it privately and that you don't want anybody to know. You follow? It's like, you're going to do it privately, but, your wife said, where are you going? Nothing special. But, instead he could have slipped out and the wife didn't even ask where he's going. He does it, but the wife sees he's going somewhere. So already knows he's doing something. And then she's wondering, where is he going? So then she might be interested in seeing where he's going. And she sees he goes and does a very nice mitzvah privately. And he wanted himself to be discovered that he's doing it privately. So people say, ooh, wow, look what kind of tzaddik is. He does it privately. You follow? That's a low level. That's a low level.
Have a question?
Yeah?
Let's say you have children.
That's different. If you have children, you have to do a lot of it publicly, or else they won't learn how to do it. But that's still private in your home. But yes, if you give tzedakah, you have to show your children you give tzedakah. How are they going to know to give tzedakah? So your children are really an extension of you. It's still private. It's still private. So you're right. And the truth is, wherever it's necessary for other Jews to see that the mitzvah is being done, you also have to do it publicly. Let's say you're trying to raise funds for a worthy cause, and other people aren't going to give unless they see somebody's giving. So then you may have to do it publicly, just so others will know that people are giving. But generally speaking, the rule is you should do it privately. And this guy does what he does. He conceals it in a way that he'll be caught doing it privately. They'll say, wow, he's an amazing tzaddik.
An anonymous donation, is that...
Again, the average level is best to give an anonymous donation. That's the average. Again, if it will help the community more that it's not anonymous, okay, and usually, what the rabbi will tell you. In other words, you should always try to give anonymously. If the rabbi will call, says, thank you so much for the donation, I really would appreciate if you would just let people know you're doing it, because if people don't know, no one's going to give. That's why, in Shul, a person gives a kiddush. So we tell the person gives a kiddush for many reasons. First of all, it could be for a reason, simcha. So I want people to say mazel tov to the person. Could be it's for a yortzeit, which to give a bracha and a shomer seven aliyah. But second, people have to know that people are giving kiddushes. Everyone's going to think the kiddush happens by itself, and there's nobody has to give. Well, the shul can't sustain itself by paying for all the kiddushes, and they don't have the money for it. So that's why. But if somebody insists on being anonymous, so on the request, if everybody wanted to be anonymous, then we'd have a problem. That's just the nature of people. We'd like to do as much anonymity as possible, but there can't be total anonymity in the kind of world we live. Now, if everybody was a tzaddik and everybody would give without, being sort of coerced nicely, then everybody could be anonymous, but it just doesn't work that way.
There's the old joke. Mr. and Mrs. Ginsburg will give $100,000 anonymously.
That's right. Yeah. Exactly. But, so the average level is do it anonymously, unless it has to be done publicly. The worst level is doing it anonymously, but you're hoping to be found out. Now, what's the highest level? This is one we're going to talk about now. The highest level is where the house is full with people. I'm reading from my text. Or maybe, am I on the other one yet? You know what?
Seven.
It should say, number 7 should say, it's the Arvei Nachal quoting the duties of the heart. There's all the duties of the heart. The Arvei Nachal is quoting the duties of the heart. I'm sorry. He said the highest level is where, and this is where you have source number 7. You got it right here. There is a higher level where the house is filled with people, but it is not filled. For the person is so attached to Hashem, where he is so bound up and yearning to fulfill the will of Hashem that it leaves no room for any ulterior motives. In other words, you're so close to Hashem that when you do a mitzvah, the only thing you're thinking is of Hashem, and you're not even interested in what people are thinking. There's 1,000 people watching you. Being in a full room, and as if nobody's there. And why is that the highest level? Because you're no longer tempted by the Yetzer Hara anymore. When you're that close to Hashem, and all you care about is Hashem, it doesn't matter how many people are in the room, you're only thinking about Hashem, that's the highest level.
But if you don't get covered, if you don't have recognition, you lose the motivations in most cases.
That's for people who are not very spiritually gifted. Gifted people in spirituality, they despise the covenant. Again, let's talk about a husband loving his wife. Now, if the husband really loves his wife, does he have to make remarks, statements of pronouncements of his love to his wife in public? Is it something he even wants to do? He loves his wife, and he knows the only person who needs to know it is his wife, and better said privately. And, again, this is very hard in the secular world where there's no shame, and everybody just wants to be out there, and there's no sense of modesty. People like to show off these things, but really it's not appropriate. It's not appropriate when you go to a simcha and the father of the bar mitzvah boy publicly says how amazing his wife is. I love you, dear. My life would be nothing. What are you telling it to who? That's obscene. You tell it to your wife. Well, who needs to know this? Does Chaim Yankel, your poker friend, need to know how much you love your wife? Why? Who needs to know that you love your wife? Only one person. Your wife, and maybe, yes, your kids. But even that, there's certain limitations. Right? If you really love someone, it's private. As we talked about intimacy last week. It's an intimate feeling. And I'm not interested in sharing that with anybody. Now, what if you're doing a mitzvah with Hashem? What's a mitzvah? Mitzvah means connecting to Hashem, being close to Hashem. I love you, Hashem, I'm doing a mitzvah. Why do I need to do it publicly? Again, we're not talking where people have to learn to do the mitzvah. We're not talking about that. We're talking about regular. I'm doing a mitzvah. That's between me and Hashem, that's all. And if you feel close to Hashem, you're very loath to publicize it. There are those, unfortunately, there are people who only will do mitzvahs if they, if you whiff them. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? So unfortunately, fundraisers for good causes have to whiff them. Because they won't give. You say, listen, we have a worthy cause. But what do I get if I give the money? What do you mean? You're getting the great merit to be involved in a mitzvah. Well, but aren't they going to get something for it? But that's unfortunately the way people look at things. I'll do the mitzvah. I'll give you money. Will you give me a plaque? Will you give me this? Will you give me that? So why do you need something? Aren't you doing it for Hashem? Unfortunately, there are people who don't do that. And it's okay. Better they should give for cover than to not give at all. But it's not the high. The highest level is I'm doing because I love you, Hashem. The only thing I'm thinking about is Hashem. And therefore, even when you're in public, your love is so filled with Hashem, there's no room for any wanting for any honor. You love your wife. Now, you do things for your wife because you're expecting something in return, or you're loving her because you're connected to her. Well, I'm going to do real nice things. My wife will tell everybody how nice a husband I am, and everybody will think I'm a good guy. That's not the way you're supposed to do it. If you really are intimate with somebody, you're doing it because you want to be with them. And you're not interested in any outside approval. Right? So that's the highest level. And he says, we do this every day in davening. We say this. With David HaMelech, said, "Vayivorach David es Hashem le'enei kol Yisrael." And David blessed Hashem before the entire congregation. What does it mean he blessed Hashem before the entire congregation? As Rashi explains, the text needs to say that even though he acted in front of the eyes of the entire congregation, his intention was only to bless Hashem and only Hashem by himself. Even though he was in front of thousands of people, he only, as far as he was concerned, it was just him and Hashem and nobody else. So the highest level of serving Hashem is to be so connected to Hashem that you are to be with thousands of people in front of you as you're doing a mitzvah, and you're only thinking of one thing, you and Hashem, and there's nobody else in the world. And if there was nobody else in the world, he would be doing it the exact same way. And now that everybody's in the room, I still do it the same way. I'm not noticing anybody's in the room. That is the highest level. Now, the Arvei Nachal continues, the last source, and he says something very, very scary. He says, when a person does a mitzvah with ulterior motives, what happens to the mitzvah? Well, really, his mitzvah will not be accepted before Hashem right away, because there's all that ulterior motive surrounding that mitzvah. And he will first be punished in the next world for the ulterior motive. And then the mitzvah alone remains, and he is rewarded. Interesting. In other words, you're doing a mitzvah. Why are you doing a mitzvah? Again, mitzvah means connection to Hashem. I want to do the will of Hashem. I'm putting on tefillin. You know why? I love Hashem. I want to do something for Hashem. I love it. I want to be close to Hashem. That's beautiful. I'm putting on tefillin because I want everyone to think I'm a very frum Jew. I want to have very high status in the community. I want my daughters to marry the best kids. I don't really think that much about Hashem when I'm doing it, but it looks good. There's a lot of peer pressure. And, if you want to, I do business with these Jews, and if I stop putting on tefillin, business will go down because I give business to another religious Jew, and that's why I do it. So now, what kind of mitzvah is that? So there's three levels. This person who doesn't do the mitzvah at all, that's really bad. The person who does the mitzvah without any ulterior motives, that's really good. When you do a mitzvah without any ulterior motives, when you go to the next world, boom, right away, Hashem rewards you for that mitzvah. And the reward is the closest to Hashem in a deeper way. But now I got all these mitzvahs that you do for ulterior motives. So what kind of mitzvahs? It's like I'm doing something that Hashem wants, but not really because Hashem wants me to. The ulterior motive is counteracting the efficacy of the mitzvah itself. The mitzvah itself is supposed to bring you close to God, but there's something separating you and God, and that's that ulterior motive, such as honor. That's what happens in the world to come. Hashem looks at all those mitzvahs. He'd love to reward you for them, but he can't because there's too much ulterior motive in them. So first he punishes you in the world to come to remove that desire to do things for the ulterior motive. Once that ulterior motive has been burned to a crisp, then what's left is the mitzvah. And now you realize you only do mitzvahs because you love Hashem, and then he can reward you for the mitzvah. Do you hear? Do you hear what he's saying? It's an incredible idea. Now, so you're going to say, so why are we encouraging people to do mitzvahs for ulterior motives? Because it's still better than not doing a mitzvah. The person, for example, will not put tefillin on. The Gemara speaks very critically of people who don't put on tefillin. The Gemara says a person does not put on tefillin even for one day because he just doesn't want to. Very, very sad things are going to happen to that person in the next world. Bad news. Bad news.
Not a balance,
No, it's a bad. Tefillin is a really big mitzvah. See, I'm giving you an example of tefillin. I'm just saying, you can do a lot of mitzvahs, but it's going to be very bad if you don't put on. Because tefillin is like, can you imagine a wife married to a husband, and she refuses to wear a wedding ring? What's the message you're saying? You're not the only thing in my life. Tefillin is the wedding ring. Hashem says, here, I want everyone to know that you're mine. Whenever you walk in the street, I want to see all these rings. There's many rings. 7 rings, another one here, another one here, 10 rings. A man wears 10 rings to show that you're married to me. If you're not interested in that, that's a problem. Can you imagine the wife who's pretty much a loyal wife? One day she decides to go to a bar. And before she goes to the bar, she takes off the ring. Now, why is she doing that? Just tell everybody, I'm not just tied down to this guy. I can play the field a little bit. The purpose of putting on tefillin is to say, I am married to Hashem, and look how the proof is I'm wearing his rings. The person doesn't put it on, that's bad news. That's bad news. So now, wouldn't it be a good idea? Now, what's worse, or what's better? For him not to put on tefillin, or we'll pay him $100 a day to put tefillin on? It's better to pay him $100 a day to put tefillin on, because at least he's putting them on. It's not for the best reasons, and he'll still have to be punished for that, but when the punishment is finished, he still will have the mitzvah. You with me? Now, obviously, the best thing is put on tefillin because you love Hashem. So you ask, well, why, is it such a good thing to give people honor for mitzvahs? Yeah, it's better if they're not going to do the mitzvah at all. But it's definitely not a high level. The highest level is, I'm doing it because I love Hashem, and that's the only thing I'm thinking about. As the old song says, I only have eyes for you. I do a mitzvah, Hashem, I only have eyes for you. And this isn't just between us and Hashem, it's marriage, same thing. Friendships, same thing. You do what you do for your wife or your husband because you're expecting something in return, or you're doing it because I just want to be close to you. And if you want to get something in return, there'll be some kind of punishment somehow in that marriage, because you're not tight. Anyway, he says one last incredible thing. So, and now, someone who has a mitzvah, and let's say you want to do the mitzvah, and you need Hashem to help you out. Hashem's going to have to do a little bit of a miracle to help you finish up the mitzvah. Let's say you're taking on a task, that's a mitzvah, but it's really beyond your natural abilities to do this. You really can't. Let's stick with tefillin. You might put on tefillin, but you're really not feeling well today. You're really not well. You want to put the tefillin on. You try and get out of bed, you can't get out of bed. You've been putting on tefillin for the last 25 years, and you love putting it on. You really want to put it on today, you want to put it on, and you physically can't. You mamish can't. You need a miracle. Will Hashem do a miracle for you? So he says, Hashem will not perform miracles for falsehood. If you want to do the mitzvah with an ulterior motive, there's no way Hashem's going to do a miracle. If the mitzvah is not totally clean, a miracle will not happen then. In other words, how l'shem shemaim you are, how much you do the mitzvah for the sake of the mitzvah, that's how bound up you are with Hashem. To that degree, Hashem is very interested in you doing it, because that really gives him pleasure, and he'll do miracles for you. But if you're doing it with ulterior motives, so already the mitzvah is a false mitzvah. So Hashem doesn't want to get involved with false mitzvahs. So now let's look what happened with Pinchas. God did 12 miracles. Obviously, Pinchas could not have fulfilled this mitzvah of killing. Killing them was a mitzvah. Torah says, if you see a person cohabiting with a non-Jew, it's a mitzvah to kill him. It's a mitzvah, one of the 613 mitzvahs. But this mitzvah needed 12 miracles. Hashem did 12 miracles. What does that tell us about the actions of Pinchas? They were done 100% for the sake of God. And this is what the Arvei Nachal stresses when he says, source 1 and source 2. It says he stood up amid the assembly. Why does that have to say he stood up amid the assembly? Just say he stood up. So the pasuk is saying, even though it was amongst thousands of people, he only did it for Hashem. And that gets reinforced in the next source as well. When he zealously avenged my vengeance among them. He did it among everybody, but it was my vengeance. The Torah is stressing, Pinchas did it in front of thousands. And you may think he was trying to do it for some political gain. As we know, contemporary politicians, if they do anything for anybody, everybody has to know they do it. Do you think politicians do a lot of things, that could give them a lot of favor in the eyes of many? They're going to hide it? If Hashem is saying, I did miracles for him, because why? That's what the Medrash is saying. Why is the Medrash saying he did 12 miracles? What do I care about the 12 miracles? The text doesn't say it. The answer is to know that what Pinchas did was 100% only for the sake of Hashem, with no ulterior motive at all. And even though he got up from amongst the community, and the second time it says, and he took vengeance amongst them, the people were not part of the equation. He wasn't saying, well, now that I'll do this, I'll be promoted to being an important man. Had nothing to do with that. As far as he knew, he might have even gotten killed doing it. He wasn't counting on the miracles happening. But one thing he knew, this is a desecration of Hashem, and I cannot tolerate this. So therefore, that's what the Torah is telling us over here. The room was filled, but as far as he's concerned, nobody was there. Comes out, what is a real zealot, the way the Torah is defining a zealot? Let's think about it. A real zealot means someone who has complete perfection in his service of God. A zealot means total commitment. And when the person does the action, there's a total connection to God without other ulterior motives at all. Even those who like gematrias, it says, Vayikach Romach, he took a spear. Romach is spelled Resh Mem Ches, gematria is 248, which really means he took his whole 248 limbs of his body. He took his complete self. He was completely for the sake of Hashem. A zealot means he's totally connected to Hashem without any ulterior motives, and therefore he is devastated when he sees God's honor being disgraced. Let's say you're at a wedding, you're with your wife, there's 4 other couples at the table, and one of the people there insults your wife in front of everybody. You're at a wedding with your wife, and one of the guests insults your wife in front of your face. Now, how are you going to react? You know how you're going to react? It depends how much you are committed to that wife of yours. If you are really connected to that wife, you're going to tear a limb off of that guy. Now, there'll be different levels. If you're totally uncultured, but you're committed to your wife, you'll take a gun and shoot the guy. Not recommended. But you'll get up and you'll say, "Pardon me? What was that I thought you said about my darling wife? Could you repeat it again for everybody?" That means you stood up for her. Stood up for her. That's called being a zealot. Because you're totally committed to your wife. If you don't say anything, and the wife looks at you and go, you can't say, well, he's a sheepish kind of guy. It's like, you don't love this woman as much as you think you do. If you love this woman, you wouldn't have sat by and watched that. And and even though it's not your nature, to make trouble, but this guy just insulted your wife, at least you say, I think we'll have to leave. Okay, you're not the kind of guy who's got the gumption you're just not the kind of guy who conflicts. Fine. You say, you know what? I think we have to leave. Which also the wife would understand. Okay, he's not the kind of guy who can scream and yell. He's kind of meek. If he was upset enough to say, we're leaving, that'd also be good. But you didn't let it go by. That's the point. That's what a kanoi is. Kanoim pogim bo. If you see a man who is cohabiting with a non-Jew, this is an act of intermarriage. Now, intermarriage undermines the continuity of Judaism, doesn't it? Can we have a Jewish nation if people intermarry? What kind of a disgrace is it to the Almighty? So when that happens, the Torah says those that are zealous can kill him. But the only one who can kill him is a zealot. Why? Because that person is totally devastated by the act. Just like we have another expression of zealous and jealous. And the Torah says if a man tells his wife, I don't want you hanging around with so-and-so, and I'm warning you not to hang around this guy. And then she goes into seclusion with this guy, boom. We have serious implications. The same wording is used. Because a husband loves his wife, he's going to be a zealous. He says, I don't want his wife fooling around with somebody else. Total devastation. How do we react when you find out that so-and-so is intermarrying with somebody? Hey, Nebuch, what can we do? That's not the way he's supposed to do it. What's going to happen to God? God's probably crying. This is terrible. It's a desecration of God's name. So here's the point. Here's the point now. The mitzvah says kill him. Now, based on what we saw in the Chovos HaLevavos, what if you do a mitzvah with ulterior motives? What happens to the mitzvah? It's really not yet a mitzvah right now. So if the Torah says if you see a Jew cohabiting with a non-Jew, it's a mitzvah to kill him. What happens if you're going to kill him, but you happen to just not like the guy? And truthfully, maybe he, you just never got along with him. He was much stronger than you, better than you. Your wife always says, why can't you be more like Chaim Yankel? You really wish you could kill the guy, but you can't. But now you have a loophole. Torah says, you saw him cohabiting with me, you can kill him. It gives him no greater pleasure to kill him. Isn't that because you're devastated because God's honor has been humiliated? No. It's a great, I wanted to kill him anyway. So now what are you doing? Murder! It's not murder only if it's doing it for God. But if it's you, it's murder. So therefore the rabbis are saying, if you see a person cohabiting, the law is he should be killed. But you can only do that if you know 100% you're doing it only because of God's honor and you are getting no benefit from it at all. You feel terrible. You're devastated for Hashem's honor. And you never would kill anybody in your life. But because of God's honor, you have to do it. That's what we say. That's the law. But we don't recommend people to do it because how do we know we're doing it 100% for the sake of God? Therefore, the only way, so you got to be careful. So that's why the people were disparaging Pinchas. They said, we know that's the law, but how do we know he did it for the sake of heaven? He didn't do it for the sake of heaven, and therefore he just wanted to kill him. That's what they thought. But that's why God had to do the 12 miracles to say you're wrong. And even after he killed them, they wanted to kill him. Hashem blew them away, as it were. See, I did a miracle for him. That shows. That says, I'm telling you, he did it for the sake of heaven. And although a Kohen who kills somebody normally cannot tuchen because that's not bringing shalom, but here killing him was bringing shalom between Hashem and the Jewish people. Because when you take away a bad person who's supposed to be taken, when you do a mitzvah, that's always shalom. But it only works if you do it for the sake of the mitzvah. You with me? So let's say, let me give a practical application of this. Let's say you have to discipline your child. Your child has been miserably bad. He's made you crazy, and the truth is, you begin to hate him and resent him. And now, guess what? You caught him with his hands in the cookie jar. Now, by right, you're allowed to discipline him. It'll give me no greater pleasure than to discipline you, young child, because I have enough of you. Or your teacher in school. The answer is, you're not allowed to discipline him now. What do you mean? Because you're doing it for your own selfish needs, and that's an avera. Let's say whatever the discipline is. Let's say in the days of corporal punishment, you can take him off your knee and spank him once. I'm just saying the old-fashioned way. Okay, I'm not saying you can do it. Now I'm just giving an example. So let's say spanking a person. Are you allowed to hit a person in general? Go over to somebody and spank him? No, you can't do that. What if there's a good reason? He has to learn to behave better. Let's say it's approvable. I'm not getting into the philosophy spank. I'm just giving it right. Well, the answer is, if you're only doing it because you want him to learn the lesson, and there's no personal vendetta, that's the only time you're allowed to do it. That's as great many rabbis in the olden days, when they would have to discipline their children, they would always wait till the next day to make sure that any vestige of anger is not there. If you're a teacher and a kid did a prank and deserves to be punished, you better make sure you punish him because you're upset at him or because he needs to learn to behave better. If it's because you're upset at him, you're not allowed to punish him. You say, I'm so upset with you, I'm not going to punish you. I'm going to say to the principal, and let the principal punish you because he doesn't have a vested. That's why you send the kid to the principal a lot of times. Because the teacher can't really say, I'm doing this honestly because it's for your own good. Because really that's a little bit good for me too. The principal, didn't get insulted, didn't have to put up with it. The principal can be a little bit more objective, say, listen, you did this and this, and this is the law. That's why we take people to courts of law. Let the court of law punish them and not vigilantes who are doing it with their own personal interest. Okay. So a true zealot is completely bound with God. That person will bring peace to the world. Because if you're totally bound with God, then people will learn from you to behave that way as well. Because the real peace of the world is only when everybody is in touch with God. As we talked in the Shul, in the Bayit a couple nights ago, peace is when everybody is focused on the same goal. When everybody's focused on the same goal. So if you are doing something and it's for the sake of heaven, that can only bring peace. It's only for Hashem. I'm not doing it for me at all. Once I'm doing it a little bit for me, then you're not going to have peace because I do for me, you do for me. There's conflict. If you're doing it for the sake of Hashem, that can't be bad. That can't take away from peace. Now you have to ask Hashem, what is your will? Maybe what you think is his will isn't his will. So you ask a rabbi a question. That's what Pinchas asked. Pinchas asked. He didn't just act on his own. Remember, Shimon and Levi, the sons of Yaakov, they wiped out the city of Hebron to defend their sister's honor. Yaakov was furious with them. Why? Why didn't you ask me? And I would have told you that's not the will of God in this situation. We could have found another way to get her out without lying and doing what they did. Pinchas asked. That means there's no ulterior motive. If he had all motive, he would have killed the guy right away. Asking him, what is the will of Hashem? Right? And here the killing of Zimri, a person who wanted to distort Judaism. Zimri was saying, what's this business? Why can't we intermarry with them? We're going to bring Tikkun Olam. I got a great way for Jews to make Tikkun Olam. Let's intermarry with the non-Jews and spread Judaism to the non-Jews. Isn't that great, Tikkun Olam? God said, sorry, I don't accept it. And therefore, and Pinchas had to stop this. This was getting very popular. A quarter of the men were going to intermarry. It had to be stopped. And God says it has to be stopped. Discipline had to happen right now. A false notion like this has to be totally destroyed. But it cannot be destroyed with animosity. So how do I know I'm not doing it with animosity? You ask a question. See what the answer is. And you have to be sure that you're only doing it because of him. You have to be so devastated for God's honor that that's the only thing that's bothering you. Not like the Crusades, who, yes, we will take up God's cause and we'll recapture Jerusalem. And on the way, we'll kill as many Jews as we want to, because we hate Jews anyway, all in the name of religion. That's a narishkeit. When you spank your child, it's allowed if tears are coming down your cheek while you're spanking your child. Then you're allowed to discipline. The old expression, it's going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you, is true. If it doesn't hurt you at all, then you shouldn't be doing it. It's devastating, I have to, but I don't have a choice, because I want you to come out to be a good child. God is testifying that Pinchas did it 100% for the sake of God. So sometimes killing will bring peace, but it's got to be done only for the sake of God. Very, very difficult thing to do. Okay, so now we begin to see all the questions get answered. Why did Moshe do it? The answer is, you don't think Moshe had a little agenda? Even if he's a tzaddik. But the guy had such chutzpah. The tribal head goes right to Moshe. Can you imagine if somebody would come to me, and Rabbi, I want to ask you a shiloh. Can I do a question? Can I do this or not? I say you can't. Well, I'm doing it anyway. Not just for a minute. Do you think I'd be a little upset? I'd be a little upset. I said, what do you mean? What you asking for? Sometimes you get these lines from people, they ask you a question, do I need to put a mezuzah over here? So I go, yes. Then I say, are you sure? When I was younger, I really took a personal offense to that. Now I'm older and wiser. I just realize how insensitive people are. People ask me a question. I say, he can't do it. And the next day I see he's doing it. I say, why are you doing it? Well, I decided to ask another rabbi. Oh, yes. Okay, now Moshe was a great tzaddik. I'm not going to minimize it, but Moshe, the guy said, can I marry this shiksalah? He says, no. Well, what about you? Even if it didn't bother Moshe. But if Moshe would kill him, what would everybody say? Let's say it didn't bother Moshe an iota. Could he kill him? People are going to say, hey, you know why he killed him. He insulted him right to his face. That's what it means his hands were weakened. That's what it means that Moshe forgot the law. What do you mean he forgot the law? He wasn't sure of himself. Maybe there's a little bit of personal vendetta here. I never can be sure about it. When it ever pertains to you, even though you think it's good, and probably Moshe wasn't at all bothered, but he couldn't be sure of himself. So I can't do anything. Well, what about the Levites? Well, the Levites, there's also a problem. They were, now, what happened? By the sin of the golden calf, they came forth, because by the sin of the golden calf, they didn't have any special status. They had no axe to grind. But now the Levites, they're already special people. If the Levites will come now and kill this guy, they'll say, oh, you want to keep your special position. So it's a very interesting scenario. This was an act against the establishment. And if the establishment is the one that's under attack, it's very hard for people to believe, or even the establishment, to say we're truly disciplining you for the sake of heaven. Now, this was an incredible crisis. You have mass deterioration of what's going on in the Jewish people. I mean, this is flagrant violation of Torah. And in such a clever way, because it insulted Moshe, was insulting the Levim. The establishment is totally being insulted. if anyone from the establishment would respond, there would either A, be the suspicion it's not totally for the sake of heaven, and therefore would be a sin, and even if it was, people would think it wasn't. You with me? It's not a question, so how can we solve the situation? And now we come to the most important lesson of the whole class. Why did God omit Pinchas from being a Kohen? So now it becomes very clear. This making the Kohanim happened 38 years earlier. 38 years earlier. Where very ceremoniously God says, Aaron, you will be a Kohen. Elazar, you will be a Kohen. Isamar, you will be a Kohen. Any future children you have, you will be a Kohen. And Pinchas is standing on the side right there and saying, and me? Hello? Hello? I'm here? The act of omission. The greatest act of omission maybe in the history of the world. Everyone's looking at Pinchas and saying, hey, God doesn't even recognize you. Now, put yourself in Pinchas' shoes. Now, he was the son of Aaron. He was from the tribe of Levi. Now imagine, a Jew in that time. Let's say you're from the tribe of Yehuda. Okay, you're not a special guy, but when we come to the land of Israel, everybody's going to get a tribal portion. So everybody's a somebody. No matter what tribe you're from, even if you're not a leader, when we get to Israel, everybody gets a piece of land, Macha Parnasa. Who doesn't have a piece of land in the land of Israel? There's one group who don't. Who's that? Tribe of Levi. Tribe of Levi, which includes Kohanim. So how do they make a living? Oh, well, we have to give them a tenth, we have to give them this, the Kohanim get all their korbanos. There's all these fringe benefits as being government employees. Okay, that's fair. You got the people who get to work the land, they give them a piece of land. So obviously you give them land, you have to support those that are taking care of the people. That's okay. So the Kohen Levi, they'll be taken care of. So tell me exactly, what was Pinchas' status now? He's from the tribe of Levi, so he ain't getting a piece of land. A Levi he wasn't made because he's a descendant of Aaron. Only all other descendants of Levi were Levim, not descendants of Aaron. Because the descendants of Aaron were Kohanim, but not him. So he's Nishta Kohen, Nishta Levi, Nishta Yisrael. He gets no land like Yisrael, gets no job like a Levi. He's not a Kohen. What is he? The only person of 600,000 men who has no land, no job, no parnasa, no benefits. Now, would you say he got shafted on this deal? Now, if me and you were Pinchas 38 years ago, do you think we might start to complain a little bit? Now, let's counterpoint that to a fellow we met a few weeks ago by the name of Korach. Korach was a Levi who was given the privilege to be a Levi, who carried the ark, pretty good, eh? But was overlooked, remember, of being the prince of Levi. Remember? I don't want to go over all that. Now, how long was he able to stomach that insult? Not very long at all. Maybe a month. And he said, what do you mean? You didn't pick me? And therefore did the whole revolution, and eventually got swallowed up. Korach was so smart. He was smart, he was rich. He was going to be the Levi Hagadol, remember? He was going to be the big guy. So him and Pinchas were very similar. What do I mean to say? They had greatness in them, and Hashem purposely overlooked them. Why? Well, who knows? When you come to this parsha, you get the answer. But it took 38 years until you got the answer. Hashem says there's going to be a time where there's going to be a revolution against the establishment. And what's going to be required is a person to do this mitzvah with 100% dedication, without one drop of personal ulterior motive. And that takes a long time to develop that special person. And Hashem didn't say to Pinchas, and Pinchas never knew. But Hashem's royal plan was Pinchas will be the guy in our darkest hour will get us out. Why? Because he's the one man that nobody can say he's not an establishment man. If Moshe gets up, what do you expect? He just got insulted. Tribe of Levi gets up, what do you expect? Their lives are in danger. Their jobs are in danger. Kohanim get up. Their jobs are in danger too. You're telling us to be a holy people. We're telling us to be an unholy people. Who can get up and say, for example, who can get up and give a speech about faith in God better than you'll believe? A pampered North American child or a Holocaust survivor? He suffered enough that he can be believed. Pinchas, for 38 years, had to ponder the question, how am I ever going to survive? I mean, thank God I have manna now. But when we go to the land of Israel, I will die. I won't get a piece of land. If anything, I have to live as a pauper. And Pinchas, don't you think he was a great guy? Think he was just a schmozo nobody? He was Pinchas. Pinchas, which we know is also Elijah. He does a name change later on in history. Elijah the prophet who will bring the Mashiach. 38 years he's walking around. Can you imagine everybody saying, can you imagine what they're saying in Shul? So all the Levites in training can now go over the training course. Pinchas, you have nothing to do. That's right. Yeah, well, must be a reason. Can you imagine the butt of jokes? 38 years. What's wrong with you, man? Now, Pinchas, you think if Pinchas get up one day and say, I don't want to put tefillin on anymore. I'm sick of this religion. Pinchas, no matter what kind of a raw deal Hashem gave him, every day he put on tefillin, every day he learned Torah, every day he lived like a righteous Jew. And he don't think he had the question. He said, but Hashem knows best. I don't have to worry. I don't know why he's done this. I don't need to know why. I just know Hashem would never be cruel to me, and if it seems cruel, I don't know why, but I trust Hashem. I'll be the best Jew I can every minute of my life. Da-da-da-da! Right at the end of the trip, we're very soon going to Israel now. It's within a month or two. This is it. It's the end of the line. We're at the end of the Sefer BaMidbar. In another 2 months, they're in the land of Israel. This is it. We're coming to the promised land. And Pinchas, you ain't got no land in Israel. You got nothing, man. And then he says to Moshe, Moshe, didn't you teach us in school that if you're jealous for God, you should kill him? And then, bing. The rule is you tell him no, right? The rule is if someone says no. Why did Moshe define the rule? Because Moshe knew. You know what? This Pinchas, for the last 38 years, he gets up to daven, he puts on food, no matter how bad God has been to him. He, for sure, is a loyal guy. He is the only one in this generation who can kill this fellow, and we know 100% he's doing it for the sake of God. Nobody else could believe that. And even Pinchas may have not realized that. And Hashem had to testify. He did it for the sake of God. Interesting. I don't think people appreciate the greatness of Pinchas. 38 years. If your wife does something you don't understand, you can't even wait 38 seconds for a full explanation. If God takes away your parnasa, finished. God does something bad to you, out of the game. And Pinchas, I don't know if it could be any worse than what he had. Think about it, men. Know that you'll have zero parnasa, guaranteed. Because the only way you have parnasa in the land of Israel, and that's what it says, is by your tribal portion. Or if you're a Levite and you're a government man. He's a nobody. Singled out as the only nobody amongst everybody of the Jewish people. Can you be more dissed than that? And every day he puts on tefillin? Every day he talks to Hashem? That's who the hero of Judaism is. And that's the guy who gets a Nobel Peace Prize. You could murder somebody, but one thing's sure, when he murdered that guy, believe me, he had nothing in it for him. Because killing him, if anything, would be better for him to join that side. If he joins that side and the anarchy reigns, then he'll get something. The rules will change. He's defending God when God did nothing for him? That's the biggest proof he's doing it for the sake of heaven. There's no other thing. And that person, when you do something only for the sake of heaven, can only bring peace into the world. And the plague stopped. Had he not killed them, another 132,000 Jewish men would have died. That's peace. So, that is that's called a Jewish hero. Pinchas. So is a zealot. What was the name of our class? Can a zealot really bring peace to the world? If a zealot is someone who does something totally for the sake of heaven, saying totally for the sake of heaven, then you know that can only bring peace. Because Hashem himself, one of Hashem's name is peace. Because what does peace mean? Peace really means everything fits together. Everything is focused on the greater purpose. A person who's totally focused on the greater purpose, there's no way he can bring animosity. If you're so religious that you go and gratuitously insult people who are not religious, you're not doing things for the sake of God, because God will never let you insult him. You don't have to listen to them, and you can say that they're wrong, and you can publicly say that they're wrong. You do a number of things. But if you don't do it in a nice way, then we know you're not doing it for the sake of God. Pinchas shows us, and this is really how we start the 3 weeks. Because what did we say last week's class? Last week's class we were talking about the idea of being intimate with Hashem. Shivas V'Tamas. What happens when you break the luchos? You can't be intimate with Hashem. That's why we're in Golus, not being intimate with Hashem. And you see what happens. You get to the point where you allow yourself to fornicate with all these women. Pinchas is showing us what it takes to build back the Beis HaMikdash. What is Hashem really waiting for? That intimacy that did not exist has to exist. And that's what Pinchas is. No matter how bad things are, he only does things. He doesn't move a muscle unless it's 100% for Hashem's sake. And that's the real shalom we're waiting for. So we should be inspired by Pinchas that to when we do things, for us, better start in private. Start in private. And one day to get to the level you can do it publicly and you don't even care anybody's looking. When that day will come, then Hashem will bring the Mashiach very soon. B'meir v'yameinu, amen.